Hi guys! So last week I made a video on keeping hamsters warm in the wintertime and why it's so important. And in that video we touched briefly on the subject of torpor. Torpor is a state very similar to hibernation, and it's a state that hamsters can fall into if they get too cold. Now, after posting that video, I did get a few similar questions. Questions such as, do I need to wake my hamster if it goes into torpor? Can I wake my hamster if it goes into torpor? Is torpor dangerous? And how do I know if my hamster is in a state of torpor? So these are all questions that I'm going to try and answer as best I can in this video, and I do have my own personal reasons for wanting to make this video, because a few years ago, some of you may remember, we had a hamster that actually went into torpor, and it was definitely a very scary situation. It was one we'd never been in before, and I worried so much about it. If it hadn't been for the help and reassurance I received from other more experienced hamster owners, I wouldn't have known what to do in that situation. So I wanted to make this video to help out anyone else who does find themselves in this similar situation, so that they don't have to worry as much as I did when it happened to me. For anyone who didn't watch my video on how to keep hamsters warm in the winter, I'm just going to briefly go over again what torpor is and how it's different from hibernation. Now, many animals go into hibernation, and hibernation tends to happen around the same time of year, and it also happens for about the same length of time each year. Hibernation is more of a planned, long-term situation. Usually animals who hibernate will hibernate for several days at a time or several weeks, and then they will wake briefly before going back into hibernation. Torpor, however, is more of an unplanned, short-term solution to being too cold. There are many animals that can go into torpor when their environment becomes too cold, and hamsters are one of these animals. The biggest difference between torpor and hibernation is that torpor only usually lasts for a few hours. During this time, the hamster can raise its body heat and lower its metabolism so it doesn't use up as much energy while it's sleeping. Torpor is not something animals need to do every year or every winter, but it is an option for them to do it if they do get too cold in order to protect themselves. Torpor itself is not dangerous and is in fact completely natural. Many hamsters can go into a state of torpor without their owners even noticing and wake up a few hours later when the room is a bit warmer. The reason owners worry so much when their hamster goes into torpor is because this is an obvious indication that the environment is far too cold, and cold can in fact be very dangerous for hamsters. If the environment is too cold, it can lead to your hamster becoming very ill, or worse still, their body may shut down completely and they may pass away. For this reason, if you ever do find a hamster in a state of torpor, it's important to slowly heat them back up until they reawaken. If you discover your hamster in a state of torpor, you may be in for a very sudden shock. Hamsters in torpor do look like they've passed away, so just to warn everyone, that is the sort of thing you're going to be looking at, and it can be very upsetting at first. They will usually be very cold to the touch, they won't be responsive to you at all, they won't be moving in any way, and sometimes their heartbeat slows down so much that you can't even feel it. The easiest way to tell if your hamster is in torpor, or if it has unfortunately passed away, is by looking for rigor mortis. Rigor mortis is when the body becomes very stiff, and this happens shortly after death. Usually with hamsters, this happens within 15 minutes to half an hour of passing away. Sometimes it can be a little longer, sometimes it can be a little shorter. With rigor mortis, when you pick up your hamster, it will be completely stiff. You won't be able to move anything easily, and they'll feel like a little cold statue. However, with torpor, they don't go stiff, and you will be able to move them. So this is one of the biggest things to look out for. A couple of other methods people sometimes suggest are looking at the whiskers, because occasionally when a hamster is in torpor, its whiskers twitch just a little bit. You do have to watch them very closely to see it though. Another method is to take a small teaspoon and to place the back of it very close to your hamster's nose. If they're still breathing, then their breath should show up on the spoon, especially if the environment is very cold. If your hamster hasn't gone into rigor mortis and you're really unsure as to whether it's in torpor or whether it has recently passed away, then what I suggest doing is proceeding with the following steps to try and heat them up and wake them back up. Waking up a hamster from torpor is relatively easy. Now, there are many different opinions and advice on how to wake up your hamster, so for this video I'm just going to share with you the advice I was given when this happened to me and the methods that I used to reawaken my hamster. Just to note that it is very important that you only heat your hamster up slowly and don't suddenly put it into a very warm situation, as you may cause more harm than good. The first thing you can do is to get your hamster into a warmer room. This may be another room in the house, or it could even be a car with the heater turned on, anywhere that's warmer than the room they're currently in. The second thing you can do is to use your own body heat to help warm your hamster back up, and you can do this by simply placing them against your chest and cupping your hands around them. While your hamster is against your chest, place a piece of fabric or toweling over them, being careful not to cover up the nose, and gently rub their backs. What this can do is help the blood circulate quicker, allowing your hamster to warm up naturally. Hot water bottles filled with hot but not boiling water or heat mats are also great tools. If you're using a hot water bottle, whether that be a regular human hot water bottle or a plastic drinks bottle filled with hot water, make sure you wrap a blanket around it before placing it anywhere near your hamster. You don't want to suddenly put them onto something that's very hot, and by wrapping a blanket around it, the heat will seep through slowly. If you're using a heating mat, again make sure you put something between the hamster and the mat itself. Start it on a low temperature and very gradually raise it. I would suggest not going any higher than a medium temperature, as again, you don't want your hamster getting too hot. Once your hamster has woken up, you can also feed it some warm food to help it feel a little bit better. Porridge oats or Weetabix soaked in warm water is a great treat to give them when they wake up to help them warm up inside, but you could also give them scrambled eggs, warm baby food, or even a little bit of plain boiled chicken or turkey. The time it takes a hamster to wake up does vary, but it should be within about an hour. They may still be drowsy when they come out of this sleep, and that's perfectly normal. If you have difficulties waking your hamster, or if once it's fully awake you're still worried about it or it's acting unusually, then do take it to a vet to get it checked over. So there's my personal advice and opinions on what to do if your hamster goes into torpor. Those tips worked for me and I'm so glad they did, and hopefully they'll work for you guys too. The number one thing I want all of you guys to remember though is to not worry too much. A lot of hamsters do go into torpor every year and they are just fine, so don't worry yourself if you do find your hamster in this state. If you found this video useful, don't forget to leave us a thumbs up. You can also share the video with your friends and subscribe if you haven't already. There's also lots of links to our social networks and other things down in the description box below. So thank you very much for watching my video guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!